Well, look, sometimes you just want to make a new wave song, okay? I hope we just haven't offended the leader of some hippie cult. Hello, everybody. Hi. Hi. First of all, I want to start out this video with an apology. Also, I hope you don't mind if I have a little bit of white wine because I've earned it. I've had a rough couple weeks. The apology is that this is a little late coming out because I got that flu that everybody got. And once everybody got it, they had trouble getting rid of it. And it lingered around forever. And everybody I know had it, probably because we all hang out together. And then what happened was I had some horrendous work days. So even though I was feeling better, I couldn't get to work on stuff. And it was sad and because I had started a song, which is the one you just heard, Dry Bones Speak. And then, I had to kind of put it on hold. But that ended up working out. It's like I said, it's been a rough couple of weeks. And I don't edit that sort of stuff out of these things. So I just want to say this video will follow the pattern that we established last time, sort of, or as close as we can get, which is that I will talk about the inspiration for the song, how it came about, what my thoughts were. Then I'm going to talk about the actual music. I call it music stuff. So now what happens is the last thing I'm going to do is a tutorial. I'm going to show you all how to make an FM bass. So if you're not interested in what's coming up, which is the thought process behind the song or lack of thought process, then you're more interested in how the sounds were made, you can go to that. So we're going to do that. The first thing I'm going to say right here, what you're seeing now, where's my other finger? Wherever that is, there it is. Right here is the time code for music stuff. Okay, you got that? So if you're just interested in the music stuff, you don't want any backstory, go here. Okay, now, if you're just interested in how to make an FM bass sound, that's good. That's our tutorial for this time out, and that will be located at this timestamp. I've got to learn how to work my fingers for these things. That's not even the right finger, for God's sake. But anyway, it's at this timestamp right here. And also see this little light popping up every now and then. Makes it look like I've got some gigantic whitehead. So go here if you want to learn how to make an FM bass. Took us a long time to get there, didn't it? All right, so the inspiration for the song, the name Dry Bones Speaks, comes from a video that I happened to see, and the video was called "Did People in the Medieval World Believe in Ghosts?" And you see that pop up, you got to watch it. So I was watching it, and apparently in the Middle Ages there were a group of stories that historians now call Dry Bones Speak. So somebody would go see a dead relative and the bones would get up and start talking to them. And every time I see something that's got a cool name, I write it down, put it into my phone, which is over there, so it's just filled with all these little song titles. Sometimes I look at them and I'm like, what was I thinking? But other times I think it's a pretty good idea. So I had the basic name of the song in my head. So, and I should point out, something like Dry Bones Speak, as a Philadelphian, really appeals to me. Philadelphians are obsessed with death, and when we go on vacation, by the way, we're so obsessed with death, we're showing the movie Midsummer in like 2 weeks at Laurel Hill Cemetery. Not going to miss that. And we're so obsessed with death, we go on vacation, and we'll go to places like crypts, and any sort of place where mummies. Yeah, under St. Michael's in Vienna many years ago, I went to the crypts under there, and oh, that was fun. They have one mummy had its mouth all open, and then I was like, whoa, what happened there? And the tour guide, my German isn't the best, but I could understand where he was going. He said, we think a rat burrowed its way into the mouth. I'm like, oh, I don't know why I did that with a French accent, but into the mouth. I'm like, oh, that's cheerful. And he's like, you want to see a corpse that was pregnant? And I keep getting that little bit of light. See that? Looks like it's got a giant, there it is, like a giant whitehead. If I only knew how my fingers work. I finally figured it out for the whitehead. Speaking of Vienna, so while I was sick and spending a lot of time on the couch, so my wife could have the bed so she didn't get sick, so we're a couple floors apart. We're not fighting. It's just that's how it was, so she doesn't get sick, because I love her. So while she was, while I was sick, she came across a video, and it's a famous fake video. I know it's fake. Someone gets lost in the Paris catacombs, and they drop their little filming camera, and Vienna started wondering, and it's a good thing to wonder, especially if you're my wife, started wondering, did anybody ever actually get lost in the Paris catacombs for real? And yeah, it does happen. It happens fairly frequently. But she was actually kind of impressed with the fact that I got to find the picture. I couldn't dig it out in time. If I do, I'll put it on a future episode. There's a picture of me when I was very young, probably about 35 years ago or so, down in the Paris catacombs holding a skull. So, which is the wrong thing to do. Don't handle. Wasn't that skull in the background there? There we go. Not that one. I'm getting better with my hands. Working in reverse here. No, but it was me holding the skull, and it's a really good shot with a wall of skulls behind me. And Vienna was kind of impressed that I've been down the catacombs like twice. But I did the touristy thing. I didn't do the thing where you sneak into the catacombs. So while we were looking into the whole catacombs thing, I found a video from a guy named Nightscape. And Nightscape had a video which was called, moving to look at my notes here, Robbed and Abandoned in the Paris Catacombs. So I started watching this, and at first I thought, this is a setup. Basically, it's him and a friend like, we hired some guy to take us down here, and he stole our shit and left us here. And I thought, but he seemed very earnest in this. Him and his friend had decided to go to Paris for the weekend. Somebody had texted them because he usually climbs on top of buildings. Somebody seen on his Instagram they were there, and they said, "Hey, I know somebody that can guide you, a cataphile that can guide you through the catacombs, and it'll be a great experience for you." And it was, up to the point the guy said, "You should go down there and take some pictures." And while they were down there, he stole their shit and left. And he walked them 45 minutes into the catacomb, and he asked them, he said, "Do you have maps or water?" And they said no. So they were stuck down there for about 5 or 6 hours. The batteries were dying on their headlamps. Their phones were down to like 12%. I'll put up the link, and I think you might enjoy watching this. At first I thought this might be BS. But then I saw a podcast on YouTube where they were on, where Nightscape was the guest on the podcast, and he recounted the experience. I'm like, oh, that really happened. And I think it was like a week after he was down there, 2 or 3 teenagers got lost down there, and they were down there for like 3 days. And when they found them, they had hypothermia. So, be careful who you ask to show you around the catacombs. Because apparently people get angry. The cataphiles kind of live down there. They get angry now with people coming in there to film it. So that's something to know. So I also I sent it over to Vienna because one of my favorite things that was in long reads, and again, you get links, was a thing called a 3-day expedition to walk across Paris entirely underground. So I was like, ooh, I made my friend Rob promise me that before we die, we're going to do this together. Basically, a group of people had gone through the catacombs, and it took them 3 days to do this, and then into the sewers, or Le Ergot. I've been there too. Disgusting but informative, and I managed to leave before I could get to the gift shop. The biggest regret in my life. If I ever go back to Paris, I'm hitting that gift shop. So they went through the catacombs, hooked up into the sewers, and just went from the south of Paris all the way to the north. Took them 3 days to do it, a 3-day walk underground. I'm envious. They once had a contest to you could win a night in the catacombs, and I wanted Vienna and I to win that so badly. So if you're watching this and you're a cataphile and you want to contact me, go ahead, but be a while before I'm in Paris. Now, if you come over here, I can show you all the underground stuff in Philly. All right, so then Vienna and I capped off this catacombs experience by rewatching a film called As Above, So Below, which is from 2014. Excellent film. It's basically some people purposely wandering down into the catacombs to get something, and it's really cool, but it also requires that you might have to do some homework before you watch it, which is something I loved about it. It's like these shows, you have to do your homework. There's a group called Le UX, and they kind of reference them. I'm fascinated by them. They kind of reference them in the movie. There's a guy who is secretly fixing a clock that hasn't chimed in nearly 200 years, and that's something UX would do. UX. I'm I'm French. I'm francophiling everything. Les UX would do that. They would go in and they would secretly fix things, or they in the Paris Underground they'd set up an entire movie theater, and they actually started because one of the members had figured out how to get into the Pantheon through when he was a teenager through the underground, and at one point they got into the Ministry of Communications and they found the map, the master map, the one that shows all of the catacombs and where they lead to. I occasionally will bump into somebody who lives in Paris who has an entrance in their basement, and being a Philadelphian, I know what that's all about. So that is where how this relates back to the song is, like I said, I've been sick, and Vienna was going through this. I was going through this rabbit hole on the catacombs, and I was sending her stuff, and we were talking about them. And as soon as I got well enough, we could hang out together. We were watching all this stuff, and what happens is in As Above, So Below, there's just a telephone ringing down there. And that is why in the song, when you hear the words, dry bones speak, you'll hear, so pick up the phone. That is a reference to the movie As Above, So Below. So go watch that. Go watch that tonight. Okay, this concludes the inspirational stuff. We'll now move on to the music stuff. Okay, the music stuff. All right, the bass and drums that you're hearing, same bass and drums from last time, because I like to use them. And those are the Seventh Victim bass and drums. It's the Volca sample and the Volca FM. And once again, the reverb on those is the reverb from Edgar Allan Poe's Basement, which is available on my website. So go there and get that because it's free. It don't cost nothing. Now, the computer sound that you hear, because that's probably the first thing that got your attention. The computer sound that you hear, that is actually, I didn't design that sound myself. That is actually a sound from an application called Flex and a VST called Flex. That is, you can, if you have FL Studio, you can get that. The actual patch is called Computer Tape. I was going to come up with one of my own because when I first was writing the song, and I write on the computer, I had worked out, I wanted a lead there, and I worked out this weird and sequenced it and tried a couple different things with it. And I thought, wow, it sounds kind of like a computer. So I was going to basically create a sort of square wave type sound on the DX11, or maybe use another synth and have it do that. But the computer tape sound was perfect. And as I was lying in bed sick, it dawned on me, I shouldn't have to reinvent the wheel. I'm in a time crunch as is from losing a week, and I thought, you've already sequenced it, export it out and use it, and I'm glad I did, because I really do like that sound, and I think it gives it a new wavy quality. Yay! Used to be these ads for a hair place in Philly that said, in the day you behave, but at night it's a new wave. I used to love that. So the first sound that you hear, or not first sound, the first keyboardy sound, the first thing that comes from the DX11 is a sound called, it's C31, and it's called Pipe Organ 2. And this is what it sounds like. Okay, so I love that sound. I love pipe organ sounds. One of the reasons I love pipe organ sounds is because I have, since a young age, been obsessed with the silent version of the Phantom of the Opera. I've seen it a couple times with live pipe organ accompaniment, and this is my small Phantom of the Opera, and this is my large Phantom of the Opera. Open them up. Here we go. And this is how much I love it. I have one of these. So that is why I have to use pipe organ. So that pipe organ that you hear there is just basically playing the notes from the chorus / riff that you hear on these. So, and they're super simple. It's just a G, C, D, D, second time around G, C, D, E. When you first start writing songs like the Ramones, you use a lot of G, C, D. And people, I don't want to go back to that. And I thought, why the hell not when I was putting this together. So, and I'm using an ensemble sound, using the ensemble mod from this, which is, I showed it to you last time. This is the Korg NTS-1 Mark II, but look, I pimped it out. Ooh, look how much cooler it looks now. Pretty happy with that. Whee! I don't know if you can see it. Probably looks like a flower, but that's a cat head with a pentagram. But I use the ensemble sound for that, so to thicken it up a little. And I should probably confess up to something. When you hear me go, Dry bones speak. You'll probably notice I'm a little bit more on key than I normally am. That's because I use pitch correction on that. It's just a little bit of there, and my voice was ragged from being ill, and I'm not that great of a singer anyway. It's just in that one little spot. I'm never probably going to do this live, and I'm honest with you about using pitch correction. I used a VST called Newtone. That if you have the signature version of FL Studio, it comes with that, and I wanted to learn how to use it. So you basically go in and you move the words and everything to be more on key. So that was interesting, and I don't feel guilty about it. It's like somebody yelling at somebody for tuning their guitar for a couple notes. What, you tune that? But I wouldn't use it regularly, not because I have anything against pitch correction. For some types of music it's great, but not for what I do. You people want my ragged, dirty, awful voice, and it's there in the verses. So in the verses I'm using that same C31 pipe organ too, but I've got a fuzz effect on it from this, because I've always wanted to run a pipe organ through a fuzz box. I was remember that band, We've Got a Fuzz Box, and we're going to use it. Then they changed their name to Fuzz Box. They were fun. They were new wave. So that's another simple chord progression, very much like the first one. It's a G, C, G, D, G, C, G, A. But what I'm doing under that is I'm playing fifths, or often called power chords. So I'm playing a G and a D, and then I would play like the C and the G and the C, and then like a D and an A. So you don't get the third note in there. And the third note is what kind of determines, if you're just playing triads, if it's going to be a major or a minor chord. These sound ambiguous. And oddly enough, I learned how to do this from David Bowie. Not personally. David Bowie did not sit me down and tell me how to. I never met David Bowie. I never got to see him live. My mother did, and my mother lords this over me. She was at the Tower Theater, so she's on the live album. So technically she worked with Bowie, I guess. I don't know. But she didn't use pitch correction. So yeah. Those are fifths. If you get a chance, experiment with those. And then the bridge is the organ, and it is going through a phaser, again, through this. All of the sounds that came from the DX11 traveled through this little monster. And God, I love this thing. I love it so much. It's like, really, it's the one effects unit that you need. They're up to 160 now. Get yours and pimp it out. That way, if somebody steals it, you can just go, well, it looks different from the rest of them. What I'm doing there, I'm running the phaser there in the bridge part. This is, the organ's going through a phaser. It gives a nice swirly effect, almost like you got a Leslie going there. Chords are E, A, B minor, F sharp minor, E. I got that right. E minor, A minor, B minor, F sharp minor, E minor, A minor, B minor, A major. So we're going back to the major before we go back into the chorus. So just in case you wondered, in case you want to play around with chords, it's how you learn. And the sample in there is from Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, from the great Alan Ormsby. The man is my hero. So now you kind of understand how the song is made up. And I hope you don't hold it against me for using pitch correction. But you got to admit, it sounds pretty good. So, all right, so we're going to move on now to our tutorial. Okay, I'm going to start off by explaining the difference between FM synthesis, which is additive synthesis, and regular synths, which is subtractive synthesis. Okay, I've got, hang on right here. You can probably see this over here. Okay, so I've got this is subtractive and attractive synthesis. I've got this beautiful Korg Minilog XD, and this is subtractive synthesis. It's got two oscillators over here. I hope I'm pointing to the right thing. No, I'm pointing to the filters. Here are the oscillators over here. It's got two oscillators, and you use those to make the sound. Now, I'm going to be painting in some very broad brush strokes here when I explain this stuff. So there's going to be somebody in the comments that's going to be like, "Nuh-uh, that's not how it works. My dad went to see a Tears for Fears cover band in 1987, and he says that's not how it works." Okay, fine. Have your moment. But subtractive synthesis basically is like sculpting. You give somebody a rock, and they see something inside it, and they start chiseling away at it. That's how subtractive synthesis works. They give you a whole bunch of sound, and then you use filters to whittle that sound down to what you want. Okay? Now, additive synthesis, or FM synthesis, is like a set of Legos. Okay? Here's all these little pieces, and you're going to put them together. So you, in your head, kind of know what you want to build up to, and you're going to go. With the other one, you're more guided by your hands and, and your soul and everything with subtractive synthesis. So I see a lot of guys playing Moog look like they're being guided by their souls. Yeah, so that's basically the way that works. I like additive synthesis. I'm not the best person with subtractive synthesis. I like additive synthesis because I'm not so much using my heart and my ears or whatever, but I'm using my brain and sometimes kind of my eyes. So that works out best for me. That means that I have to kind of think about what I want before I go in and start doing it. So I have to think about the algorithm. Now, don't be afraid. This is what I've been leading up to for the last 2 videos. We're going to talk about algorithms, right? Not scary at all. An algorithm is just simply an arrangement of carriers and modifiers. Great, you say. That's fantastic. Well, what the fuck are carriers and modifiers? Well, I'm going to explain that. Okay, a carrier is something that makes a sound. So think about Edvard Munch's painting The Scream. Ah! Okay, there's the sound. Ah! All right, think about that. That is a carrier. And we can modulate that. We can modulate the pitch. Or we can, we can make it louder. Ah! Or we can make it softer. But that's what we can do with that. But that's about all we can do with that. Now, we're going to introduce a modulator. I want you to think of a cardboard tube, okay? And that is going to be the modulator. So if you've got the scream going into one cardboard tube, okay, and we can do stuff with that cardboard tube, all right? And then let's say we add a second cardboard tube. Now that sound's getting even weirder, right? Add a third cardboard tube, and then you can also make that third cardboard tube feed back into everything else. That is right there. You've got it. That's algorithm number 1 on the list, and that is the one I was after. Now, the DX11 is a 4-operator. Uses 4 operators in the algorithm. DX7 used 6, but the DX11 does in fact use 4. So just that's why I gave you 3 cardboard tubes when I explained that. So I know now. Okay, all I want 1 carrier. That's it. So that rules out algorithms 5, 6, 7, and 8. DX7 comes with 8 algorithms. So you got those to choose from. So I know I want that, and I know I want something that's just going to go straight down the line, and it's also on the very last one, I've got an option for feedback. I need that feedback option because I want my bass sound to have some crunch to it. I want it to have some bite. So knowing now what you know, and that was your brief run-through, let's make a bass. Okay, so the first thing we're going to have to do is turn the DX11 on. There we go. Hello. And it goes right to C31 pipe organ, because I want you to remember that, because it sounds like this. All right, so we're going to hit take off the memory protect for the cartridge. So that is important because we're going to be overwriting something, and the memory protections there is to make sure you just don't overwrite something that you love. But we also have on the FrankenCartridge, we have a memory protect, and we're going to take that off too. Over here. So we're going to move that to off, and that will allow us to write on to the FrankenCartridge. All right, FrankenCartridge making an appearance. It's a good thing because the series is named after it. So right now we are on the FrankenCartridge. We are on B1, which is how it's got 4 options there, and we're on number 9. Now, it's scrambled. You can see that scrambled mess right there. And if you play it, it makes no noise. When they all got scrambled, when the battery dies, or when the battery dies in any synth, everything gets scrambled, and it won't make a noise. With one rare exception that I found, and I'm going to save that as a surprise for a future video. One thing just scrambled itself perfectly. So what we're going to do is next thing is boom. Initialize voice, and then it's going to ask you, are you sure you want to do it? Yes. Why, yes, I am sure. In fact, I'm certain that I want to initialize that voice. All right. Now, it says initial voice. We'll name it later. We're going to move. Last step. We'll name it, and you're going to see why. Naming it is a pain in the ass. So here is what it sounds like right now, just initialized. And it is a very, very, very boring sine wave. It is nothing exciting there. All right, we're going to move forward now. Remember I mentioned I wanted that feedback. So I showed you that algorithm on the fourth operator has a feedback option. We're going to kick that all the way up to 7. That's as high as it'll go. I want lots of feedback. I want some crunch. So moving that up, let's hear what that sounds like. Okay, it sounds exactly the same. And the reason is right now, operator 4 is taking a nap. It's asleep, and we're going to have to wake it up a little bit later. So moving on, we're going to go over to the ratio. These are how A440 is tuned. If we go down to like 50, it moves it a octave down. You're going to notice that some of these ratios look a little high that I'm putting in here. In fact, let's hear what this sounds like once I have all the ratios in. Okay, some of you are saying that sounds way too high for a bass, and it does. I'm going to want some high frequencies in there. Some people will choose an algorithm where they have 3 different carriers, and they'll say, okay, this one's going to be super low, this will be a mid, and this will be a high, and I'll vary them by how much they use. No, I want some high stuff there to add a little weirdness or a little character to it, and then I can take care of that later on. You'll see. We can take care of that later on. We're doing this together. All right. Now, what happens is up next we're going to add waveforms. Make each of these 4 operators give it its own waveform. 3 of these, 1, 2, and 4, are going to be simple sine waves. Who making a bass? It's going to sound like it should sound like a traditional instrument. So you may want to have some wine. Look at Jacques Cousteau with his hat on. We Frenchmen have always been fascinated by the Catacombs. We're making a bass. It's got kind of a normal instrument sound to it, hence the sine waves. You'll notice, though, that what I've chosen for number 3, for operator number 3, that wave is just a little bit weird. What it is, it's a variation on a sine wave that has some extra partials in it. Partials are sort of notes that are kind of not the fundamental note, just a little bit different and in different areas. It's again, I explain it to you, but we'd be here all day. Just trust me on it and look them up if you don't know what they are. It's interesting. But the reason I did this was there was a famous bass sound called lately bass that is on the DX11's brother or sister, and that is the TX81Z. And that is the rack-mounted version. And lately bass got used on everything. There'll probably be some graphic with everything that lately bass was used on. I think Madonna used it on Express Yourself. It got used a lot. And it was based on, I think, a DX11 patch called Solid Bass. And for some reason, when they made the DX11, they didn't put lately bass in there or solid bass. And people keep saying in forums, well, if you want lately bass, just use it. Just use that. You have a DX11. Like, it's not on the DX11. Like, well, why don't you use solid bass? That's not on the DX11. You should use lately bass. See, that's how I get like one of those people. It's like, no, that's not how it works. It's how we all fall down, people. All right, so we're going to move on now to the ADSR. That is attack, sustain, decay, and release. And this is really what gives an instrument its character. The ADSR is what shapes something. A is for the attack. The attack is when you hit a string, let's say, and it goes, and it's basically how fast you can go from 0 to 60. This car can go from 0 to 60 in like 3.2 seconds. That's kind of what we got here. The attack, boom. How does it go up to the maximum volume? It's also, if you ever flush a toilet, when you flush it, you'll notice there's a ramp up there, particularly if it's one of the toilets I've had in my apartments. Now next is what we call the decay. The decay is when it begins to fall down to the area that has its basic characteristic. So when you flush a toilet, and it goes, and then eventually, and that, it's running, the water's running, that's a sustain. That is what the sound sounds like once it's reached a sort of normal level. And the last thing in the attack, decay, sustain, and release, and I'm giving you a very simple version, and I'm using a toilet as an example, is the release. And the release is basically saying, when I let go, how long does that note hang out there for? Like when I let go of the toilet handle. How long? Sometimes if it's all messed up, it'll just run all night, keep me awake. So that's attack, decay, sustain, and release. But it's important because this is what gives every musical instrument the qualities that it has. And this is what people use to design instruments. And you're going to see there's actually a lot of different delays. There's like, D1R, D1L, D2R. And these were created to make the instruments sound more realistic. And then within a couple of years, sampling came along. So they just did that. They used real instruments. Sad, really. Here, with the attack, decay, release, all that figured in, here's what the patch sounds like now. Okay, but more importantly, here's what it looks like. It's the last one there in the green. Yeah, you can see it's beginning to take on. The first three are just, that first one is just it as with the sine waves, and then I upped the feedback, sounded the same, and then the third one there is where I just changed the operator. But yeah, it all is the same up until you start playing with the attack and the release and the decay and the sustain, and then it begins to get that characteristic. You see it shaped a little bit differently. Fascinating, isn't it? All right, so. And that's why you want to pay attention. We're going to move on to the output now. So I'm going to set the outputs. Now remember, there's 4 operators. Each one's going to get its own output, some sort of volume level. So we're going to go 99, and 99 is because the first one, we have one carrier, and that's operator 1. That's the one making all the sound. We're going to let it get loud. Number 2, which has some characteristics that we've designed in there, that's going to go to 96. Number 3, where that weird wave sound is, that's going to go to 28. These all are going to show how much they're influencing the sound. And then over where the feedback is, that goes all the way up to 86. Okay, and this again, this is what that sounds like. You can see it looks like just a bigger version of the last one. Everything got louder, but you can see if you look at it, again, last one in the green, you can see that it's got some interesting characteristics, a little bit different than the last time. All right, now we're going to move on, and this is the next to last thing we're going to deal with. We're going to deal with rate scaling and level scaling. And I'm only bringing these up because they're interesting to me. Rate scaling. If you take an acoustic guitar or a piano, the higher strings have a faster attack rate than the lower strings. Okay, so this emulates that. That's why we're setting this to where we're setting it. And the level scaling actually has to do with the tone. There's a lot more tonal information in lower notes, and we're making a bass. So something's going to go up to 13. We're making a bass, so that's going to have that information. All right, so here is what that sounds like. And again, at this point, more importantly, take a look at that waveform. Okay, you can see a little spacing in there. Now it's got all the characteristics we want, but it still sounds a little high. Yeah. All right, we're going to take C3, and we're going to transpose that all the way down to C1. Okay, now give this a listen. Here comes our Ormsby bass. Now, the last step is to name it Ormsby bass. And we're naming it after the late, great Alan. No, not late, great. I'm sure he's still alive. Alan, I'm sorry I said that. Can't even chop that out. Alan Ormsby, the man who wrote A Deaf Dream, Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. He wrote My Bodyguard. He invented Hugo, the little doll. Alan is a god in my life. So we're going to name it Ormsby bass, and I hope you're watching this up in the corner because you have to, on a DX11, you have to name it by moving a slider and then hitting and then moving over and using the cursor to move over. And it took me, I think, longer to name the Ormsby bass than to make the Ormsby bass. I'll just tell you, the Ormsby bass, the idea for it came from me looking at different types of basses, playing around, and saying, this is what I want. So maybe going forward, what I will be doing is to go and use the sequencer, the 7 victim setup of the sequencer, the bass from the FM, from Volca FM. I may use that when I'm putting everything together, but then I may record in the Ormsby bass, because I've got a love in my heart for the Ormsby bass. And I'll put up the patch sheet. There's a lot of stuff I jumped because it is the default numbers that are in there, and so you didn't get to see that. You didn't get to see, certain like detuning. There's no detuning on it. So yeah, I'll put up the patch sheet, and that'll be available on my website. And if you have anything that is like a DX7, you can, even if you have a Volca FM, you can probably figure out how to get the same sort of sound. Get very close. All right, so that is it. I've enjoyed speaking to you, as I always do. I've really enjoyed. I didn't get much chance to sip much wine, so I wanted to close out with this thought. I saw Damian Keyes talking about this. Apparently, the guy from Spotify was saying, "Well, it's so easy to make music now. There's really no investment in making content. Like, this is content." They're saying there's no investment, but if you think about just this video, how long do you think it took me to learn how to make stuff on the DX11? And I, been trying to be a musician my whole life. I may not be a good one, but I put the time and effort into it. So people, when you put time and effort into the stuff you do, time is money. And I want you to think about that. When people go, oh, anybody can throw something out there for free. It may not be the best thing, but there is a lot of time and a lot of effort put into these things. So I just want, so when Spotify says, well, somebody can make a song at home for $2. Hey, that's great. I wish I could, but there's a lot of thought and work that goes into that. If you can't program an FM synthesizer and you want a specific sound, you got to hire me, and I'm expensive to do that stuff. So there is time and money and effort put into it. So when you watch something and not particularly this video, but you watch somebody else's video and you like it, just say, hey, thanks, thanks for putting the time and effort in. But don't say it on this video. Then you're kissing up to me and I'll slap you. All right, everybody, I've enjoyed speaking to you, and I am out of here.